So I've been watching the Nets recently after the Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving trades. The one guy I've been most intrigued by is Mikal Bridges. Now, I know who he was before, obviously, a fantastic player on the Suns who meshed perfectly with that roster. I did not expect Mikal to get traded and then immediately play like a star on his new team. On the Nets, he's been killing it, averaging over 25 points a game, and he's still shooting the ball just as well as before, with no drop in efficiency. In these situations, it makes me think, wow, did he have this in him all along? And he just didn't get the opportunity in Phoenix? Jeremy Grant is another guy who comes to mind. He was a role player for his entire career until he got to Detroit. This got me thinking, which other role players or bench players throughout NBA history got traded and then instantly started playing like a star? Let's take a look. And here are 6 players who quickly became stars after getting traded. Number 6, Victor Oladipo. Probably one of the best recent examples. When he started off his career in Orlando, there was a lot of hype surrounding Victor Oladipo. He was the number 2 pick, after all, one of many of Orlando's high lottery picks who did not pan out with the team. Then he got traded to OKC, and despite playing next to an MVP Westbrook, Oladipo didn't play much better. It wasn't until he got traded to Indiana in the Paul George deal that everything clicked. Back where he went to college, Indiana embraced Oladipo, and because they had no other options anyway, they gave him the green light. Go ahead, Victor, let's see what you can do. Almost immediately, he started playing like an all-star caliber player. Oladipo's tremendously hot start to the season was a huge surprise, and he would not fizzle out. In fact, he nearly got voted in as an all-star starter, with the 3rd most votes of any backcourt player. That's insane. And kinda sad, when you see how injuries derailed his career afterwards. But anyway, he not only led the team in scoring, but also somehow led this young Pacers team to 48 wins and the playoffs, where they pushed the heavily favored Cavs to 7 games before falling. How exactly was Oladipo able to do this, to go from just a decent role player, a decent starter, to leading a team like this? Firstly, he gave a lot of credit for his development to Westbrook. In his lone season in OKC, Oladipo observed him carefully and watched him lead the team night in, night out. He saw that he was always early to practice, always late to leave. All of that is what it takes to be a superstar. Over the summer, Oladipo dropped 15 pounds and got into the best shape of his life in Indiana. And with the Pacers organization believing in him, he started to believe in himself. His confidence shot through the roof. With their support and the support of all the Indiana fans who cheered for him back in college, there was no stopping Oladipo. That 2017-18 season, he had career highs across the board, not just in volume, but efficiency too. Plus, he led the league in steals and was one of the league's best perimeter defenders. Oladipo prides himself in his defense, and he proved to be one of the league's best two-way shooting guards. It's so unfortunate how injuries, specifically when he ruptured his quad tendon, it's so unfortunate. The dude was only 25 years old when his career started to go downhill. Number 5, Dale Ellis. Now, Dale Ellis was probably the original guy who first fit the criteria of this video. For those who don't know who he is, he was drafted with the 9th pick in 1983. Dale Ellis joined a Mavericks team that had way too many scorers, way too many ball-dominant players. In fact, the team's 2 leading scorers, Rolando Blackman and Mark Aguirre, both played essentially the same position as Ellis. As a result, he spent his first 3 seasons in Dallas as a bench warmer, struggling to find minutes. However, his fortunes would change in the 1986 offseason, when the Mavs traded him to the Seattle Supersonics. With a blink of an eye, Dale Ellis hit the ground running in Seattle. In the span of a single offseason, he went from averaging 7.1 points a game to 24.9 points a game. That's such a massive jump. I think probably the biggest jump of any player within a single season. He won Most Improved Player by a landslide, and instantly became the team's best player and best scorer. Heck, he even led the 7-seed Sonics to the Western Conference Finals. Ellis would continue leading Seattle to the playoffs, and over the next several years, he averaged as much as 27.5 points a game, and shot a whopping 48% from 3. That was unheard of back in the 80s. Heck, that's unheard of right now. He was widely considered the NBA's best shooter. Ellis's rise to stardom came out of nowhere too, but it wasn't necessarily a huge surprise. He was always a great shooter throughout his life, and in Dallas, he just never had the chance to show it. The dude was the 9th pick of the draft for a reason. And this is one of the cases where his situation mattered the most. Had he got drafted to the Sonics or any other team that gave him minutes from the get-go, he could have been a star right from the beginning. Number 4, Jermaine O'Neal. Growing up and watching basketball in the 2000s, it was certainly an exciting time. And like everyone else, I felt like Jermaine O'Neal came out of nowhere to become one of the best big men of the decade. Cause he really did come out of nowhere. For his first 4 seasons, he was withering away on the Blazers bench. At that time, they sported a front court of Rasheed Wallace, Arvydas Sabonis, and Cliff Robinson. So O'Neal was expected to watch and learn, not play. I mean, he did come into the NBA as an 18-year-old. In fact, O'Neal broke the record for being the youngest player to ever play an NBA game, a record that would later on be broken by Andrew Bynum. While he understood why he wasn't playing, his patience was fading. As he witnessed other high schoolers like Kobe, Garnett, T-Mac getting ample playing time on their respective teams. O'Neal wanted that too, but he watched in envy and wondered if he should have went to college instead. These were his numbers and minutes his first 4 seasons. Yeah, as you can see, he barely played. However, in the summer of 2000, he got his big break. In the form of a trade. The Pacers traded away their starting center for O'Neal, which kinda shocked everyone, considering the Pacers just made the finals and breaking up their lineup for a young, unproven center seemed like a bad choice. Why would you break up a team that just went to the finals, right? However, over time, it became the right choice. When O'Neal first found out he got traded, he excitedly said, "I finally get a chance to show what I can do." I don't think anybody really knows. However, Blazers head coach Mike Dunleavy thought otherwise and explained the reason O'Neal did not get minutes. "I just don't think he was as talented as the guys who were playing in front of him." Oh boy, was he wrong. Shortly after the trade, O'Neal became an All-Star and the NBA's most improved player. He started a string of 6 consecutive All-Star appearances for the Pacers. It turned out the Pacers were correct in trading for him because he quickly became the man of the franchise, and his rise to stardom gave Reggie Miller a shot to win an NBA championship before his retirement. That was the Pacers' ultimate goal for this trade, to quickly rebuild and go younger to give Miller one last chance to win the title in Indiana. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. Despite having a season where they won 61 games in 2004, they'd lose to the Pistons in the conference finals. Then the year later, the malice at the Palace happened. Too many players on the Pacers got suspended, so it was a lost season for them. Still, prior to the trade, O'Neal was a complete afterthought. So just to get this opportunity in Indiana, he felt so blessed. Number 3, Kevin Johnson. Very few players win Most Improved Player in their second season. In fact, only 7 NBA players in history has done so, but KJ is the only one to do it after getting traded in the middle of his rookie year. Initially drafted by Cleveland with the 7th overall pick, KJ came off the bench behind Mark Price, and it frustrated him that he didn't get much playing time. He made this clear to the front office that he wanted more minutes, but they couldn't give it to him. So they traded him to Phoenix. This was honestly the best thing that could have happened to him and the Suns. This team had a losing record for years, but immediately when KJ joined, in his first full season with the team, he averaged 20 points and 12 assists, more than doubling his previous averages. He not only became one of the league's best point guards, but also stamped his name as the future face of the Suns franchise. It wasn't just his numbers either. KJ exemplified confidence. Despite being just 22 years old when he got to Phoenix and being the youngest guy on the roster, he also became the most vocal leader on the team. Under KJ's leadership, the Suns reached back-to-back Western Conference Finals in '89 and '90. Over the years, KJ had some pretty bad luck with injuries, especially untimely injuries, which caused his career to fall off quicker than expected. For a few years, though, he was absolutely dominant. One of the most athletically gifted point guards ever, who also had incredible vision. At that time, everyone truly believed he would take over Magic as the best point guard in the NBA. And if it wasn't for the injuries, he could have done that. Number 2, Ben Wallace. Do you guys remember what Ben Wallace was like before he joined the Pistons? Good, because I don't remember either. That's because prior to his arrival to Detroit, Wallace's career was at a dead end. I mean, for an undrafted player to make it to the league in the first place is very impressive. So at least he had that going for him. But before Detroit, he was considered an okay center who played good defense but a horrible offensive player. When he got to Detroit, he was still considered a horrible offensive player, but quickly became the greatest defender of his generation. The Pistons went from 21st in defense to 8th in the season immediately when Wallace joined them, and eventually they'd have a top 2 or top 3 defense a few years later. Rebounding titles, leading the league in blocks, winning Defensive Player of the Year 4 times, Wallace was the first player of the modern era to become a superstar solely on his defensive impact. The reason for his immediate impact has to do with his fit. Wallace fit seamlessly into the Pistons' game plan that focused on wearing the opponents out with their rugged, slow-paced playstyle. What made these teams so special was that every player in their starting lineup was previously seen as a lost cause or a reject, or an afterthought. This mishmash of players they assembled was not expected to accomplish anything, let alone winning a championship against a Lakers super team. If Wallace had not been traded to Detroit, nobody would have known who he was. It was just the perfect situation and perfect timing. I look at it similar to Draymond Green in Golden State. If he was drafted by any other team, he would be nowhere near as relevant as he is today. And at number 1, James Harden, the best modern example of a player who got traded and immediately became a star. Unlike the others, I feel like most people recognize Harden already had the talent to become a star. He showed it in OKC when he came off the bench. He showed it against the Spurs in the playoffs that he can lead a team if given the opportunity. Perhaps I'm being a bit obtuse for even suggesting Harden was a role player in OKC, but he did go from a bench player to becoming an all-star and #1 option immediately after getting traded. That's still hard to do, regardless of how talented you are. Most players on this list ran away with Most Improved Player, but Harden, in his first season in Houston, only finished 7th in the voting. That's kinda weird, don't you think? The dude went from 16.8 points a game to 25.9 points a game, and led a mediocre Rockets team to the playoffs. The reason Harden wasn't really considered the most improved player was cause, like I said, we already knew how good he was. We knew he was capable of doing this. Still, to do this for an entire season as the first year of being the man of a franchise, and to do it consistently, that's still super impressive. So he fits the spirit of this video. Anyway, that's all folks. Those were 6 NBA players who were once role players, but quickly became stars after getting traded. Let me know your thoughts in the comments if you can think of any others. And what are your opinions on the players in this video? Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. And of course, as always, I'll see you next time.